I'd kind of like to, let's get into the meat of this and actually invite Director Osterman to kind of give us some sage words on what your thinking is and where you're at with Department of Commerce, and how can we work together to make this all work that much better?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks, Brian. I think the biggest opportunity is, we've finally, through the legislature, we've got our business attraction people staffed, or not staffed, but approved. And so I'm hoping that I'll be making our first hire within the next week, and second one hopefully coming not too long after that, to start recruiting businesses. And so one of the opportunities that I was actually just talking to Jerry and Christy about is really creating sort of an environment of what's our universal playbook for having some company to come to visit, and sort of the nickel tour, the 25-cent tour, and the full dollar tour, and how do we do that in each one of the areas that we all represent, and then how can we at Commerce sort of coordinate that. So we're using this instance where I've had a company contact me directly, and to be able to sort of start setting up some planning and some thinking about that as to what do we do at Commerce, what do my business attraction people need to do, and then how do we work with all of you sort of as our primary connection point. I mean, obviously there are other connecting points with chambers of commerce and city governments and county governments and those types of things, but really I think with Meta, you're the tip of the spear with us, in these types of opportunities. And so we just want to set the scene. Montana has something for everybody, but it isn't for just anybody, right? And that's that's the thing that we need to probably set up the best opportunity for them to experience what we have. Whether it's getting involved with Patty and MMEC and in those types of things where there's a situation for bringing in a larger manufacturing complex, whatever it is, just bringing all of the various awesome capabilities that we have together in a more unified front, rather than just having everybody kind of doing their own thing. So, because in my mind, I'm accountable to all of you to be able to grow and bring business into the state. And I would hope that we would be in partnership to be able to come up with a variety of different ways of making sure that somebody wants to come and visit Great Falls or Missoula or Plentywood or wherever it is, that we're all aligned in a general path of knowing here's the first 5 things that we do wherever we are, and then what are the things that are then regionally specific. So that's what I'm going to be hoping that my business attraction team starts to put together. I already have a 90-day plan from one of them, and we just want to take advantage of that and make sure that we bring the best businesses and the right businesses to Montana to help grow our economy. And you guys are a big part of that, and I'm not here to replace anything, but here to really just augment what you represent in each one of your regions. And in addition to that, there's broadband, right? So I did everything I could to not have broadband, but I got stuck with it anyway. So now you're stuck with me, and we're going to try to figure out a way to get this done when we're still unfortunately underfunded, and but we still need to be very intentional. So I need to hear feedback from your areas as well. I want to try to get a universal speed testing tool, and I think there's a couple that I've found out there that we can use on our phones and work with our Wi-Fi's and not get caught up in whatever the structure, land infrastructure is that your provider might be giving, but also just sort of give us a good speed estimate. So, because we don't get really good speed estimates out there. And so I think it's going to take a village to figure out what that really is, so we can define these unserved, frontier, and underserved areas.
Perfect. Maybe a question on workforce. It seems like everybody's struggling with it right now. I mean, Is some of that following on you, or will that be Department of Labor and Industry?
We're working in conjunction with DLI. Part of the 632 environment is to have, there's 150 million set aside. 125 million of that is sort of left that we're trying to figure out what to do with. But 10 million is in rapid retraining. So people that are in need of doing something different. I think that's, I'll be meeting with the DLI people in the next 2 days to sort of understand what's going on there. And then, as you know, last week or week before last, there was last week, I guess. We just gave another 15 million to support the back to work, return to work program out of that 150. And so now it's really, what do we do? And the bigger piece is, workforce housing in a lot of areas, right? In the Flathead, it's a huge shortage. Gallatin, it's a huge shortage. And so that makes it very difficult just to say, hey, go ahead and move, 50 or 100 or 200 people or whatever. So if you can hire people locally, I think that's important. But, some of that talent that they might be bringing with them might be uniquely, contributing to the success of what they're planning to do. So we got to find a place for them to live. And, that I think is probably the bigger challenge than broadband or anything else, is just, do we have the people and do they have a place to live?
Perfect.
So
And I think the one last question, any changes that you're seeing from some of the structure of some of the programs that are coming out of Commerce? Is it keeping what we have, embracing and growing? Is there any kind of leaning that you're thinking of with those items?
So ARPA sort of changed a lot of things, right? And so we're sort of being whipped by the ARPA tail at this moment. And had ARPA not happened, I think we would have been much more probably pinpoint and precision oriented towards getting businesses in recovery and those types of things. But now we have all this ARPA money to deal with, and frankly, they are huge sums of money compared to what we've had in the past to work with. And so, on the other hand, it's a time bound thing. We've got basically 3 3/4 years or so to 3.5 years to be able to use it. And then there's other aspects. We're only going to get half of it at a time, and all these things like that. So all of these rules are now kind of finally coming forward, and we're trying to figure out, okay, exactly how do we follow the rules and not get over the tips of our skis, so to speak, and get ahead of the game. But I'm thinking that there will be some new opportunities. I just met with a large banking concern here, and we were talking about the amount of debt that some of our companies have had to take on during the pandemic. And maybe some of this money for stabilization and transformation is we can use as partially a grant, partially as a revolving credit fund, like a lot of the things that you use. And whether we give it to you or we give it to we keep it. I don't know any part of that, but part of me says, look, we've been given this money. If we can actually use it and have it come back so we can continue to help additional companies down the road, there's always that desire to keep some piece of that, but then get together with the banks in terms of restructuring some debt and some loans and look at it in a little bit bigger picture and allow somebody to, get their, manage their cash flow better, as opposed to having to do debt service and then get themselves fully out of the hole. So, maybe a little bit of a grant money and some other combination of effort would be ideal. So that's just some ideas that we're kicking around now to, sort of, think out of the box as to how do we help organizations. I've had some good conversations with people that are kind of in that mode where, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they've got, there's at least a small train in the middle of it with a dim light that says they could get run over if they don't manage their cash for a certain period of time for the next 6 months. So got to figure out how to get them through that tight spot and then let them go.
I think that's music to our ears right there. That is what we're worried about, is that next 6 months could be a pivotal point for a lot of
Right,
businesses.
right. And so my request to you would be, when you hear of people that are in those situations, we haven't drawn up exactly what our plans might be yet. We're still formative in that because it's so new, but the more feedback I get from all of you, the better it will be for us to say, here's the best way to structure these programs.
Perfect. I think that's a task that we will take on. We're very happy to look at that, because boots on the ground, we get to see those on a daily basis. And I mean, who's struggling, who can really expand right now if they had capital?
Right.
How can we all come together?
Yeah.
Excellent. Are there any other specific questions for the director? Thank you Scott for that so far.
I see one question here, and it's basically, has there been any program to assist those not on broadband to subscribe to Starlink? So you're probably all very aware that any non-terrestrial in relative to 297, non-terrestrial support was not brought forth in 297. So the answer to that is no, we would not be doing that at this moment. One of the things that the Starlink program, Starlink's been given 70 some odd million dollars to provide that satellite service to Montana under a beta test. And as that beta test continues, and quite frankly, it's been successful, we know that as we look into some of these frontier areas, we're going to be able to use that as a benchmark to be able to say, okay, what is the best way to serve this? Personally, I think if it turns out to be a positive thing, sometime in the next couple of years, we'll be able to have that amended and maybe open that up to a certain extent to have more satellite. But I think we have to make sure that technology matures and there isn't something that essentially we invest in that doesn't necessarily take hold and have a long life. The opposite alternate side of that is that there's some concern that they really don't pay taxes in Montana, and so there's no property tax. There's no, we give, in that case, you give money out, and essentially there's zero coming back. And at least if we're building infrastructure that, essentially it's an 80-20. I mean, for whoever the receiving company is we're working with, we're giving an 80% basically gift to them to build out and secure their customer base and our citizenry to broadband for a 20% investment. So, and then later on, that's their property once it's deployed, and so they start paying property tax and those types of things, and it has that has a net ad return value in some way to us. So that was some of the concerns that the legislature had, and I can understand that, but we'll see. I don't think it's off the table, but it's not on the table for right now in this short term.
Wayne, as related to broadband, our committee has agreed to continue. And so I think that if there's a relationship there to continue to build, we're moving forward and continuing the discussions and looking at the national programs and how we can keep that chain of communication of all those different stakeholders available. And so if that is of use, I think we would love to still have that opportunity to work closely with you with the Broadband MEDA Committee and how we kind of move forward jointly, and that we're supporting the efforts of the broadband funding that's available, but also kind of keeping in mind how do we get it across all communities. It is a rural issue, but it's also urban issue too.
Yes.
And so we need to kind of make sure that it's not a one size fit all approach and that there is some flexibility on how we can do it. And then besides the MEDA conference, of course, if you need any help in discussing with the cooperatives, MTA is definitely the lead on that, but we can always provide them support as the Co-op Development Center as well. And we also have some new co-op discussions happening around broadband.
Right. Yeah. So we definitely want to keep you all involved in that. I think one of the we haven't put the commission and the structure fully together yet, but I am planning on having a technical and community advisory committee that, or board or whatever you want to call it, but a group that sort of comes alongside of our task force and can work and have better connections to the community and to the technology world, so that we know that we're not missing anything, right? And I can't staff all of those people, and I don't want to necessarily, I want to have outside voices be heard. So, Tracy, your whole media team will have a very strong voice, I think, there, because it is important, especially, if we look at relocating a company or a company expanding, and it could be in a populated area because they need that, whether it's for the employee base or for the rest of the infrastructure around them. If we said, well, yeah, everything's great, except you don't have any internet out there, that's not just a deal changer, that's a deal breaker, right? In this world. So we got to make sure that we handle all that. I see another question is it clear in the regulations that ARPA can be lent out and recirculated? And we know that some states are already planning on doing this. It's not 100% clear. We do not have all the rules and regulations. I know that some came out yesterday and there's more supposedly coming out this week. But that's not 100% clear, Allison. To answer your question, I don't know. We're hoping, because I think it gives us the greatest amount of flexibility, whether it's working through you or working directly and or in some combination of that to do that. So.
Perfect. So I think it's been a very fast and furious, 5 months for you so far, and for all of us. Can you maybe be a little more clear on the ARPA funds? What has landed in your lap, and what are you taking kind of on at this point through Department of Commerce?
Okay, so we have broadband, and that's 275 million there that's coming for that. We have the business stabilization, economic transformation, and workforce, and there's 150 million there. We're working with DLI on the workforce part of it, and then we're now coming up with some of the business stabilization, economic transformation parts of it. So we continue to work with them, but the funds are running through Commerce, and we'll administrate it. And then we also have new housing programs and home programs, so home loan and some stuff like that. So there's another, I don't know, 75, 80 million that are in that one. We have the SSBI program, or SSBCI, or whatever it is, and that is there's about 65 million that's come from ARPA through that. So we'll be expanding that program. And then last but not least is the infrastructure bill, which was headed exclusively to Commerce, and we got some help from DNRC because that would have been essentially almost 90% of all the ARPA money running through Commerce, and that I finally said that's just too much. We luckily Amanda stepped in and said, hey, we're here to help, and so we were able to hand off pretty much all of the back end, excuse me, of that, and we'll be handling the front end, the community connection part for all the infrastructure, and that's mainly water, sewer, and those types of city infrastructure requirements. But we'll be handling some of that front end and aiding in smaller towns and cities or that don't have the necessary planning in or technical capability of putting an engineering program together, a plan together in order to build a new sewer or whatever it might be. And because we can't expect some of these small towns to have the capacity, nor do they have the budget to actually be able to fund those types of things and get it done in time. So we'll do everything we can to help support getting those infrastructure things rolling. And so obviously with MACO and some of the others that are entities that are so much more focused on that than you guys are. I mean, essentially, it becomes an enabling part of the rest of the economic development. So it's very, very related and fundamental, but certainly it's something that as you see growth happening in your regions, in your areas, we want to know about it and start to make sure that we're communicating well that, that infrastructure needs to be built out. And or hopefully we have some great success stories to tell that, we've brought a company into, Win It or, Roundup or something like that somewhere along the way in Lewistown or whatever that gets everybody excited. And we got to put some infrastructure in there and broadband to be able to do it. That would be that'd be a great win-win to see, towns like that or Havre or whatever get a 50 or 100 person company moving in. Those are huge changes for communities like that. Just as well as a 10 people working in Fort Benton would be a huge change, right? So.
And thank you for that. Sarah Hudson put it in here. We don't want to forget our rural communities, and that's going to be a big thing that drives our economy. Is those 10 jobs in Fort Benton? That's a big deal.
Yeah, right. So, one question I have for you, as collectively, is we're working with a variety of different companies and people as we've started to now sessions over and we've started to have communication. I'm trying to get my arms around what the non-employed that wishes they could be employed, but there's some condition that just isn't going to necessarily allow that, right? And I'm not saying that you can. There are people that can work from home and they're an engineer or they're this, that, the other thing, and they're a high-paid individual. But I'm talking about, there's also that other section of the community that is relatively, constrained in one way, shape, or form, would just love to have a job. I mean, that pays a reasonable wage, but also doesn't require any skills. How much of that population do you think is out there? And if there were, because I have 2 or 3 different companies that have come to me and said, hey, do you think you have populations that are non-working today or that require a pretty low bar from a skill standpoint, to have a connectivity in the internet of some type, not even necessarily super high speed, and a phone connection, and have then the ability to work in some of these other support type environments or whatever. I'm not going to tip my hand as to what it is, but not really call center type stuff, but very much, supporting the non-working community so that people who don't have any income can actually have income and, maybe make $12 to $15 an hour or something like that. What's your general feeling as to what's out there? Because we got to look at both ends of the spectrum, right? We can't all just have, bring your 100K jobs here. Well, we'd love that, but we also know that there's the non-employed that need an opportunity as well.
Right. But I think there's some generalities, but that's something we could look at. Gloria, I know Ann has done a lot of work in with the idea of trying to find some rural workers. Maybe what we can do is kind of get that subcommittee together and kind of put our brains together and give you a kind of a white paper on what we're seeing out there.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think we've talked about it. If
Yeah.
I can be so bold to step in. Meet has talked about having, pardon me if I get my terminology wrong, of having companies either in Montana or even out of Montana connect to a rural workforce, for lack of a better term, remotely. And we had, Mita had a guest from University of Utah Extension speak. And I think MSU Extension is just starting a new program. And I think it has to do with sort of training and requirements, Scott, for folks that, let's say, are in a rural community. And you can think of a call center, but it can be other types of jobs where it is, they just need a really good internet connection and some basic office skills. And they can be working for a company anywhere. And even Bozeman companies are already doing this. And I think there is an opportunity to, over the long term, think very strategically how that would work in Montana, both for local company, both for Montana companies that are here, but also potentially companies that aren't here. So I know my colleagues have lots of other things to say, but we have talked about this specifically. Absolutely.
So I might have Shannon you got your hand up here for a second.
I did, trying to be a good Zoom participant and raise my hand instead of just piping in. So I am Shannon Lewis. I'm the director of the State Workforce Board, and I do see that one of my board members also commented in the chat. I think that childcare, housing, flex schedules, those are all having a huge impact on Montana's workforce. We are also taking a closer look and a deeper dive at kind of who remains on unemployment, kind of what are their skills, what are their needs to get to re-enter or enter fully back into the workforce. So we're doing a lot at Department of Labor, and I'm really happy that we're, partnering deeper with economic development and on the workforce question and the workforce issue. It's definitely something we look at closely. I think, for some of this work and for some of those talent pools, like you just mentioned, I think that we would also be remiss to not mention the folks in the disability community. One of our largest percentage of folks who are unemployed are folks with disabilities, and there's a lot of potential there to get more folks into real meaningful employment, especially the work from home models have really opened that up for a lot of people to enter into meaningful full employment from that community. So there's a lot of work happening. And I will share information as we also kind of dig into our populations at Department of Labor.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. We are, we're working closely with the program, or starting to work with the program that Adam Meyer at DPHSS is putting forward about workforce. And in that, we have veteran communities, disabilities, tribal communities. I mean, all of those that Shannon's, and plus everybody that Shannon's talking about, to be able to being put into that with a very intentional and purposeful manner of looking at it and saying, how do we create gainful employment for them? And do they need training? Whatever it is that this workforce development program focused on those areas is very important. And so, I think there's a very meaningful and purposeful effort, not just a general effort, that's going to be put into that. We have a couple of different states that have done that we're learning from those programs, and that have been highly successful, and how we can emulate those and use some of the same thing would be great.
Excellent. Tracy, did you have something else that you were going to hand up here for?
No, I couldn't figure out how to get my hand down. I guess Zoom is not my friend today.
There we go. Thank you. Excellent. And Scott, I think Sarah brought it up. We know there's some rapid redevelopment money for veterans. Montana is full of veterans around here. So I do think it's a good point to take advantage of a pandemic to actually make some opportunity to people who have struggled with that. So I think we're very willing to want to lean into that. Working with you going forward.
That's great.
Anything else? I know everybody's got a lot of irons in the fire. Anything else for the director right now?
Brian, I would say there was quite the discussion going on in chat. And Sky, it's hard to follow when you're also talking, but Gloria always keeps copies of those, and we can forward them to you to make sure that you kind of capture those thoughts, because childcare seemed to have kind of
it's certainly been and that's a huge piece of what we're dealing with, about people returning to work. So we're very aware of that.
Perfect. Excellent. Kim, were you stretching, or were you looking to say something? I think she was just stretching. Okay. Excellent. Anything else for Director Osterman? Gloria, did we have anything else we openly wanted to hit with that?
I am recording this, and Director Osterman, I'd be happy to share with you the questions in the chat that we didn't get to cover today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Director, thank you for your time and everything that you guys are doing. We've got a couple things we'll be coming back to you. Really like the idea of the capital that might have some grants work, all put in there. I mean, a lot of us, we've got money coming at us. We're a little worried about SSBCI having some pretty tight restraints on what we can use it.
Right.
So, but yeah, we see some definite areas where we would really like to be the boots on the ground out there and working with some of our partners. Oh,
That's great. Well, my hope and my intention would be that sometime in the next 3 to 4 months, I get to see each and every one of you in person. So that will be I don't have the airplane like the governor does to make a 56 county tour in a short period of time. So my little white Suburban Tahoe will be making its way across Montana in a little bit slower mode, but hopefully that allows us to spend a little bit more time too.
excellent. Again, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. All right.
So moving on with our agenda, Patty, do you want to take over here for a second?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So as chair of the nominating committee, the nominating committee addressed the issue that there are 5 people whose seats are up for re-election currently. Those 5 people are Tracy McIntyre, Tony Schneider, Marie Hirsch, Chris Sircone, and Sarah Converse. And as the nominating board, we'd like to nominate those same 5 people to be reelected. So at this point, I guess I could turn it over to Brian to run the voting and the discussion on that.
So I think the big thing we want to be is inclusive for the membership. Is there anybody else that would like to bring up their name to be on this at this point? There's a lot of work that we want to be doing for some additional strategic planning. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We want to reach out to the membership to be more inclusive and bring more into the fold going forward. So is there any additional nominees for positions on the board? And I'm not, want to make sure I have plenty enough time for everybody to unmute or anything else. If not, I would be looking for a motion to take the suggestion from the nomination committee to reappoint the 5 members.
Brian, this is Joe. So moved.
Thank you,
I
Joe.
second it.
Second, this,
So Grant, you got beat out by Paul there. So we've got a
Sorry.
first from Joe, and Paul gave us a second. Any additional discussion for the general membership? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
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 And for any against, same sign. Okay, Gloria, we have that one done. So Patty, I'll let you go to the second step.
Okay, so the current situation is we have past President Steve Arbuscow, President Brian Obert, Vice President Joe Wilhauer, Treasurer Rick Edwards, ex officio Secretary Gloria O'Rourke, and extended executive committee members Tori Matajowski and Sarah Converse. The nominating committee would like to nominate those same people to fill the same seats for the next year.
And once again, same thing. Any additional input from the membership? And really, somebody, if you wanted to take this from me, I am more than happy to just get back to work. But
It's a 1-year term with the expectations of 2, Brian. We all were there. So
I know.
don't get it.
Exactly. So if not, is there anybody that would like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to accept the nomination committee as stands.
Thank you, Tracy. A second from anyone?
this is Brenda, I'll second.
Oh, there we go. Gloria, are you good? Any additional comment from the membership?
This is just general moving forward. I hope, just because this is critical in all elements of our work, but making sure that we think about how diversity is reflected in our board and executive committee, I think will be important as we move forward as an organization. And I'm sure that there's been conversations about that, but I'd just like to see that carrying out through who's reflected in our board and executive committees.
Yep. It has been brought up several times. There's some strategic planning that will be going on, and that will all be part of that. So
Awesome. I figured you already had that box checked, but seems like a good road to go down.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor say aye or make a sign.
Aye.
Aye.
And the same sign for those against. Excellent. So Gloria, do we have that taken care of?
You did it. Thanks, everyone.
There we go. Excellent. Thank you, Patty, for the work, and everybody, honestly, everybody on the board and everybody just within MEDA for all the work that you guys are doing. There are days when you actually, it may be long and hard, but when you see somebody who has really done well as a business or has made it, and you know you made a difference, even if it's a small difference, there are some days that just, it is gratifying that you know somebody's alive and actually has a career because you did your little bit of work. And then, Gloria, moving forward, did you want to say anything more on the updates of the conference? You wanted me to do that?
I believe Joe and Steve and yourself were just going to encourage everyone to attend. And I can share my screen here real quick to show you the latest agenda. But just if you could just share a little bit about why this June 29th and 30th meeting is so important.
Exactly. So getting that forward, I think the meeting coming up is going to be a facilitated discussion really about where we're going forward. And I think part of it is to flush out the things that we all do agree with. From the Next Gen study, from a lot of everything else, there's a lot of things out there that we do agree with. And then there's the rest that we have some issues, we have some difference of opinion, but this will be a facilitated agenda that really is trying to get everybody's voice so we can kind of get that ball moving in that next direction, and putting some energy and getting the input from everybody that we want, and that is out there that wants to put input on the direction of the organization and on some of our programs. Joe, did you have anything else?
The only thing I was going to add, Brian, is if you think back over the last couple of years with Next Gen and some of the accomplishments we've had at the legislature, I know for me personally, it's a pretty exciting time for MEDA. We've really set ourselves on a path to go accomplish some bigger things. And I'm just excited to be able to have that facilitated discussion, talk with someone on the outside and start to come to agreement on those things. Because of course, there's things we all disagree with. But I know even our legislative call this morning and most calls that I'm on, we agree on a heck of a lot more than we disagree on. And I think this conference is going to be a really big step in the right direction of pushing some of those bigger initiatives we want to get done, preparing ourselves for the 23 session, and really moving the organization. And of course, with that comes the state and all of our regions forward. So I would just put out a shameless plug to get everyone to attend. And on top of all that, we're going to be able to see each other in person. And I've seen like 5 of you in the last 18 months, and I'm excited to just stand in the hallway of a conference room and talk about what's going on and get everyone back together. So yeah, it's going to be the best time of year to be up in Helena, and can't wait to see everyone.
Excellent. Some of our strategic planning sessions in the past, that word relevance came out. We have to create relevance. Well, now we've got some relevance. Now we actually have to do something with it. And I think that's really what this kind of boils down to, a facilitated conversation about how we take that relevance and move it forward across the board.
Brian, if I could, I left up on the screen, I just wanted to acknowledge our membership sponsors. These sponsors that you see in the upper tier there, they have come through and they're supporting us all year long, whether we have a conference or not. And so I just wanted to recognize all of them. And then to put in a plug for sponsors for the conference, we're doing really well, as you can see, but we could use 2 more lunch sponsors. We have 1 and we could use 2 more, and that's at the $500 level. So if anyone has some extra funds that you would like to help us celebrate our lunch together, that would be great.
Thank you, Gloria. I forgot about talking about sponsors. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, and I completely forgot that. And right there, I think we just drug Grant in. So, and Kelly from my app. So,
Yay! Thank you.
so I like it.
We're set.
We are set then. Excellent. And thank you, Joe. I do have to figure out how you've got such a nice image of you with everything in blur behind you. I bow to your look and brand that you guys bring to the table.
Yeah, I'm getting these figured out. It's mostly because Paul Tuss has dropped me as his background so many times. Got to figure out how to adjust on the fly.
Excellent. So, Gloria, what we had here after that was miscellaneous. Is there anything else?
We're doing great.
You know, I try to keep things on time. I don't always do a very good job, but anything else? Cheryl, is there anything from the senator that we need to know about?
No, I wish I had great things to tell you. We're all just like you, struggling through the treasury piece of the ARPA funds and hoping to get those funds used in the most productive manner. And so we're kind of in the same game you are. As you know, the senator's very supportive of anything that META does. And so we're just sharing information as we get it as well. So please don't hesitate if you've got questions about how the program works. Please send them my direction. We are more than happy to try and figure that kind of stuff out for you all.
Excellent. And I'm trying to look through, do we have anybody else from the delegations that I need to make sure that I'm, anybody else, Gloria?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing somebody here. So if not, is there anything else? Shannon, it's great to have you on with the SWIB. I just think we're going to be attached at the hip as we continue to move forward, looking for workforce and whatever we
You
can
guys
do.
keep inviting me and I'll keep coming. I mean, I guess maybe on my radar and something of interest to this group, and I don't know how realistic of a path it has, but there is the first hearing on the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act reauthorization in the House. And as Cheryl well knows, that may look very different in the Senate, but we are at a starting point on those workforce programs. And those, of course, are kind of the bread and butter of what we do in the public workforce system. I've not heard on, other things I track on higher ed reauthorization, but as we're talking about those middle skilled jobs and we're talking about recruitment and retention, I can keep you all as informed as I can on what is happening in Congress as those move. We are also, as you may or may not know, and I may or may not have shared with this group, but I definitely have shared with the board, is that, a large apprenticeship package has passed through the House and they are looking at a Senate, and then that will go to conference. So there's a lot happening in the workforce sphere in DC. What that all looks like at the end of the day, I don't know. And what that might mean for rural states, I know that the Biden administration has plussed up funding significantly in their budget, which I believe is still pretty skinny, but there's a lot more money that is being invested in workforce kind of moving forward. So I think that there's a lot to be optimistic about. I think that getting more and more business partners to engage in this conversation about how we train and how we employ people in this state, I think is one of the biggest components that we have. So that's just a little bit in my world that I'm keeping an eye on that I think is important to this group as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything else for the general membership? And if not, I've got about 3 other things I have to do with EDA very soon. So,
Hey, Brian, this is
Yes.
Kim. Just a quick plug because I know that along with workforce and childcare, the other thing that everybody is thinking about is housing.
oh,
Montana Housing Conference is online next week on the 18th and the 19th. If anybody wants to join that, I know that Gloria's sent out plenty of invitations for that, but there might be a lot of update information coming from DC there. It'll be my first one to ever go to, so I don't really know, but.
thank you, Kim. Yeah, that's, I mean, we're all hearing it. I mean, rural and urban, that just housing and price points are moving very rapidly.
Hey, Brian, the Montana Rural Water Conference is next week. So I'll be attending to see what great information I can get on 632. And we are also hosting a Zoom training for meat processing, starting from like people who absolutely know nothing all the way to certification. We'll let it go out statewide, so anyone and everyone can participate. There isn't going to be a cost. Then we have Department of Livestock working with us, and then we'll have follow-ups for individual businesses, and we'll be working with Livestock and Department of Ag to really get that pushed out, and with the Food and Ag Development Centers too. So watch your email.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah.
And Brian, since we're all announcing stuff, Montana Co-op Development Center, we are on road tours this summer. And so we're doing presentations to communities. Davey's setting that up with our CDSs across the state. But if you guys want us to come in, we're working on meat processing value added. We have housing models, we have investing models, we have childcare models. We got all sorts of cool workforce labor models too that we can be introducing to your communities as possible solutions. So let us know if you want us to meet with any groups, or if you want to be talking about anything specific in your area, and we'll get you on our schedule to come and visit your community.
Excellent. Thank you, Tracy. And I'll put in a shameless plug for Patty. If you have anybody making a widget, if there's a way they can automate it, you need to be pushing on them hard to be thinking about automating any activities that they can out there. So not to rain on your thunder here, but I mean, I think we've got to realize the workforce is going to be tight. And Dax is throwing out ambassadors on August 8th through the 10th at Fairmont. So excellent, everybody. If there isn't anything else, let's all get back to work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. Thanks, Paul.
You bet. Thank you.